The quiet hum of the Earth's defense systems was suddenly shattered as a piercing alarm blared across the planet. The first warning came from deep space sensors, detecting massive movements in the outer rim of the solar system. At first, it was just a few distant blips on the radar, almost too far to matter. But then they came closer. Within hours, Earth's security networks lit up with urgent red alerts. Ships, not of human origin, were entering the solar system at unimaginable speeds. Their size, their shape, this wasn't a random flotilla. This was a military force, an invasion. On Earth's capital in New York City, a sleek, holographic display flickered to life before the United Earth Coalition's UEC military command. A digital map of the solar system appeared, red dots pulsing where alien ships had just arrived. There was no mistaking it. The Krulth Dominion, a feared interstellar empire, was making its move. The Krulth were known across the galaxy for their unyielding conquest and ruthless dominance. A species built for war, they had razed countless worlds, enslaved countless species, and left a trail of devastation wherever they went. Their massive warships, with thick, energy-absorbing armor, could wipe out fleets with a single blast. Their soldiers, genetically engineered for combat, were unmatched in hand-to-hand warfare, and Earth had no defense. Not against them. General Lucia Harris stood in the control room staring at the array of data streaming across the display. Her mind raced. Earth's military had advanced in recent decades, but nothing in their arsenal was designed to take on something like this. They had satellites, missiles, some experimental weapons, but nothing that could hold up against the Krulth's overwhelming force. "General Harris," came the voice of her second-in-command, Captain Alex Tran. His voice was grim. "The Krulth fleet has just passed Jupiter. They're on a direct course for Earth." "Any sign of a diplomatic approach?" Lucia asked, though she already knew the answer. "The Krulth didn't negotiate. They didn't reason. They conquered." "None," Tran replied. "We've attempted to send communications. Silence." Lucia took a deep breath, the weight of the moment pressing down on her shoulders. She'd led humanity's forces in skirmishes against minor alien threats before, but nothing on this scale. The Krulth weren't just an invader. They were an unstoppable force, an existential threat to every human on Earth. "Activate the planetary defense grid," she ordered. "Prepare the fleet for combat." "We'll need more than the grid, General," Captain Tran replied. "The Krulth will breach it easily. Their ships—" "I know," Lucia interrupted, cutting him off. She didn't need to hear the full assessment. She already knew that humanity stood little chance in a direct confrontation. "Get me the president." Minutes later, the president of the United Earth Coalition, Samuel Grant, appeared on the display. His face was stoic, but his eyes betrayed the fear all humans shared now. "General Harris," Grant said, his voice shaky. "Is it true? Are we really looking at a Krulth invasion?" Lucia nodded. "Yes, Mr. President. They've entered the solar system, and it's only a matter of time before they reach Earth. We're not ready for this. We need to mobilize everything." President Grant looked away for a moment, as if weighing the consequences of every decision he was about to make. "What are our options, General? We've seen the Krulth annihilate entire civilizations. If they reach Earth—" "I know, Mr. President," Lucia said firmly, cutting him off. "We fight. We make a stand. We can't let them take Earth without a fight. We have the advantage of surprise, and we have one weapon the Krulth don't understand: our resilience." Grant's gaze hardened. "And what do you suggest we do, General?" Lucia took a breath, staring at the map of the solar system before her. The Krulth fleet was nearing Earth, a massive, oppressive force with the power to wipe out humanity in an instant. "We hit them first," Lucia said, her voice steady and resolute. "We strike at their fleet with everything we have, every piece of tech, every last soldier. We make them understand that humanity will never go quietly." There was a silence on the line. Then Grant nodded. Do it. I'll make the necessary arrangements with the council. As the president disappeared from the display, Lucia turned to Captain Tran. Alert the fleet commanders. We're going to need every ship, every pilot. The Krolth are going to realize the hard way that we don't roll over. She turned toward the map, her mind calculating their next moves. There was no mistaking it now. Humanity's survival depended on bravery, creativity, and the unshakable resolve that had defined the species since the very beginning. The Krolth might have superior weapons, but they were about to learn that humanity was not. As Earth's military scrambled to prepare for the inevitable clash, Commander Evan Cross stood alone on the deck of the Ragnarok, the last bastion of humanity's hope. The experimental starship, once meant for exploratory purposes, was now humanity's sole weapon against the Krolth onslaught. The ship's systems were barely functioning, its hull scarred from early skirmishes with Krolth drones. Yet, for the first time in human history, it was humanity's finest ship. Evan stared out the viewport into the void of space, the Krolth fleet a growing mass of death approaching Earth's orbit. The blue and green planet below looked peaceful, unaware of the terror about to be unleashed upon it. His fingers twitched, as if testing the weight of the decision that was slowly consuming him. Commander Cross, a voice interrupted his thoughts. Lieutenant Zara Patel, his trusted second-in-command, entered the command center. The fleet is ready for your orders, but you know as well as I do that they'll wipe us out with one strike. Even with the Ragnarok, it's just too much. Evan turned toward her, his face a mask of grim determination. We're outnumbered but not outclassed, he said, his voice steely. The Krolth have brute force on their side, but we've got something they don't. We have ingenuity, adaptability, and most importantly, we're fighting for our home. They've underestimated us before, and we're not going to let them make that mistake again. Zara nodded, but the doubt was still there in her eyes. How do we fight back against ships that can destroy entire cities with a single shot? Evan paced back and forth, pulling up a holographic display of the Krolth fleet. Massive warships, each one a towering fortress, surrounded by fleets of smaller ships like vultures, ready to pick the bones of a carcass. There were hundreds of them. A direct assault would be suicide. We're not going to fight them the way they expect us to, Evan said, tapping the holographic controls. We need to hit them where it hurts. We need to disable their command structure, take out their supply lines, and make them bleed. How? Zara asked. Evan's eyes narrowed. We're going to fight dirty. We're going to use guerrilla tactics, strike fast, hit them when they least expect it. We'll use the terrain of the solar system itself to our advantage. The asteroid belts, the moons of Jupiter, everything. Zara raised an eyebrow. You think we can use the asteroid belt as cover? Evan smirked. We've got nothing else to lose, and the Krolth are used to fighting straight-on battles. We're going to make them regret ever thinking humans were an easy target. The plan was audacious, but if humanity didn't take the initiative now, they wouldn't have a chance when the Krolth closed in. Evan and his small but loyal team of military commanders and scientists began coordinating the first strikes, sending specially designed ships, small, agile, and equipped with Krolth tech, into the asteroid belt to lay traps. The hope was that the Krolth fleet, with all their advanced technology, would never see it coming. As the preparations began, word spread across Earth. News broadcasts showed images of people watching in disbelief as the first Krolth warships entered Earth's atmosphere. Panic began to settle in, and many civilians sought shelter underground or in the city's fortified zones. The Krolth were merciless, and their reputation preceded them. But there were also those who stood firm, who refused to bow to this alien empire. Across Earth, pockets of resistance began to form. From the underground bunkers of Africa to the jungles of South America, humans gathered together, ready to take the fight to the stars. Human ingenuity, always known for its adaptability, began to blossom. The war effort was no longer just about brute strength. It was about outthinking the enemy. Old technologies that had been abandoned were scavenged and re-engineered for modern use. Military engineers began crafting makeshift weapons from whatever they could find. They hacked Krolth tech, reverse engineering alien devices, and using them against their creators. But the Krolth were not idle. They sent down raiding parties to Earth's cities, using their advanced plasma rifles to reduce entire neighborhoods to rubble. With every raid, they sought to crush humanity's spirit. They thought Earth would break under the pressure, but they were wrong. Inside the UEC Command Center, General Lucia Harris was receiving reports of Krolth attacks from all corners of the planet. Each new assault made the situation seem more hopeless. But then, a new report came in. A Krolth battalion was engaging humanity's first successful counterattack in the city of Cairo. "They're holding their ground," Lucia muttered under her breath. She turned to the officer standing next to her. "Send reinforcements. Tell them they're not alone." At that very moment, Commander Cross's first wave of guerrilla ships, cloaked by the asteroids, took their positions in the Krolth fleet's path. The stage was set. In the cold, dark expanse of space, the first human strike against the Krolth fleet took place. Small ships, nimble and deadly, tore through the asteroid belt, launching surprise missile attacks at the outer edges of the Krolth ships. The Krolth were caught off guard, and the first tremor of panic rippled through their fleet. The humans were not retreating. They were fighting back. The galaxy was watching. Earth was no longer the insignificant speck the Krolth had assumed it to be. Humanity had struck first, and for the first time in centuries, the Krolth realized they might have made. The first strike against the Krolth fleet was nothing short of miraculous. Humanity's guerrilla tactics had caught the invaders off guard. Small, nimble ships launched from the asteroid belt, using their environment for cover, outflanking the enormous Krolth warships. Missile after missile tore into the outer hulls of the invaders' fleets, causing explosions that rippled through their ranks. It was only a small victory, but it sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Back on Earth, the news of the attack spread like wildfire. People who had once cowered in fear began to feel a spark of hope. The Krolth had underestimated the human capacity for defiance. They had assumed Earth would fall without resistance, but now the tide was beginning to shift. In the command center of the Ragnarok, Commander Evan Cross paced back and forth. His first strike had been successful, barely, but it had bought humanity some time. The Krolth were starting to regroup, recalibrate their tactics. Evan knew this would not be an easy war. The Krolth might have been caught off guard once, but they would not make that mistake again. "Lieutenant Patel, what's the status on the fleet?" Evan asked, his voice steady but filled with urgency. Zara Patel, who had been coordinating the fleet's movements, turned toward him, her face hard. "The Krolth are reinforcing their perimeter. We've hit them with everything we have, but they're starting to adapt. Their ships are stronger than we expected, nearly impervious to our missiles. We'll need to come up with something bigger, something they won't expect." Evan's brow furrowed. The Krolth were known for their impenetrable shields, their ships, designed for maximum defense. The more they adapted, the less effective humanity's initial strikes would be. He needed a new plan, something even the Krolth couldn't predict. "We'll need to break their shields first," he said, as an idea began to form in his mind. "If we can disrupt their energy shields, then we can breach their armor and go for the kill. Let's take a page from their own playbook. Disrupt their technology from the inside." "Disrupt their technology?" Zara repeated, confused. "How?" Evan turned to a nearby console, his fingers flying over the holographic controls as he began pulling up schematics of Krolth tech. The Krolth rely heavily on their energy-based shielding systems. Their ships are designed to absorb energy, not deflect it. If we could deploy a system that emits a unique energy pulse, we might be able to destabilize their shields. "You're talking about hacking their shields with a counter-frequency pulse?" Zara asked, her eyes widening in realization. Exactly. We hack them at their own game, Evan smiled grimly. But we'll need help. Someone who understands their tech better than we do. Someone who's been in the belly of the beast. Zara nodded. I'll get in touch with Dr. Elena Voss. She's the one who reverse-engineered the Krolth tech we're using in the first wave of ships. If anyone can help us, it's her. Within hours, Dr. Elena Voss, a brilliant scientist and expert in Krolth technology, was aboard the Ragnarok, and she quickly set to work on developing the pulse weapon. The Krolth had given her enough of their technology to study, but what they didn't know was that Elena had made breakthroughs in understanding their energy systems. As she worked, Evan stood by her, watching her fingers fly across the keyboard. The pressure was mounting, but there was no time for mistakes. If this works, Commander, we'll have a shot, Dr. Voss said, her voice low but filled with determination. If we deploy the pulse and target the right frequency, we should be able to knock out the Krolth ship's shields long enough to break through with conventional weapons. It's risky, though. If their shields rebound too quickly, they could retaliate before we get a second chance. We don't have the luxury of waiting, Evan replied, his voice sharp. We deploy the pulse, and we strike fast. We hit them hard before they can adapt. As the minutes stretched into hours, the pulse device took shape, a massive, unstable array of energy coils and emitters that would target the Krolth's shield systems at their most vulnerable frequencies. The science behind it was shaky at best, but there was no other option. In the middle of their preparations, an alert flashed on the command screen. The Krolth had begun their counterattack. Their main fleet is charging, Zara said. They've broken off from the outer perimeter. They're coming straight for Earth. Evan's mind raced. It was now or never. Deploy the pulse, he ordered. All ships, take positions. We need to make this strike count. Dr. Voss nodded, typing in the final sequence. The pulse weapon was ready. They were about to make their move. Outside the Ragnarok, the Krolth fleet loomed large, their ships surrounding the Earth. For the first time since the invasion had begun, the invaders were on the offensive, but they had no idea what was coming. Evan watched as the pulse weapon hummed to life, a low, resonating sound that vibrated through the ship. The energy gathered, then released in a brilliant flash of light. It pulsed through space, striking the nearest Krolth warship. The results were immediate. The Krolth shields, previously impervious, began to flicker, then fail. The pulse had worked. For the first time since the Krolth had entered the solar system, their defenses were weak. Evan's heart pounded in his chest as the countdown began. All ships launch, he commanded. With that, humanity's final push began. The Ragnarok led the charge, followed closely by the rest of the fleet. As the pulse continued to reverberate through the enemy ranks, humanity's weapons hit their mark. The Krolth had underestimated human resolve, and now they would feel the consequences. The first true counterattack had begun, and the galaxy was watching as the humans, against all odds. The battlefield was chaos. The Krolth fleet, once a seemingly unstoppable force, was now in disarray. Humanity's pulse weapon had hit its mark, knocking out the Krolth's invulnerable shields and leaving their ships exposed. For the first time, the humans were on the offensive. Missiles and plasma fire ripped through the Krolth warships, tearing apart their massive hulls as humanity's fleet swarmed in like a relentless storm. The Ragnarok was at the heart of it all, its guns blazing, its engines screaming with power, as it led the charge. Commander Evan Cross stood at the helm, his eyes locked on the unfolding destruction. The Krolth were reeling, their once unshakable confidence shattered. The humans had pierced the armor that surrounded their empire, and the shockwave of this revelation was felt across the galaxy. For centuries, the Krolth had believed their advanced technology and overwhelming might would guarantee victory over any species they encountered. But now they had underestimated a force they had failed to recognize: human determination. Commander Cross, we've breached their flagship's hull. Zara Patel's voice cut through the tense atmosphere, breaking Evan's concentration. She was on the comms, coordinating the fleet's strike. "Their command ship is vulnerable. We have a chance to end this here and now." Evan's heart skipped a beat. This was it, the moment they had been waiting for. He could feel the weight of history on his shoulders as he gripped the armrests of his command chair. "Prepare to launch the assault team," Evan said. "We hit them now, before they can recover. I want every ship we have to target their flagships. Core." Across the bridge, the crew worked in a flurry of motions, rapidly entering commands. Outside, the Ragnarok and its fleet battered the Krolth flagship, tearing through the remaining defenses. Evan could see the cracks forming in their once impenetrable exterior, but the Krolth weren't giving up that easily. With a scream of engines, the flagship began to retaliate. The remaining Krolth ships launched a counter-offensive, their plasma cannons glowing a furious red as they aimed for the human ships. The Krolth were adapting quickly, trying to recalibrate their remaining shield systems. "Hold the line!" Evan shouted. "They can't fight us off forever!" As the battle raged on, the human fleet continued to press the attack. Lieutenant Zara Patel barked orders to the other ships, organizing coordinated strikes while keeping her eye on the flagship. Meanwhile, Dr. Elena Voss, the brilliant scientist who had developed the pulse weapon, worked frantically on recalibrating the pulse frequencies, fine-tuning the attack to deal another blow to the Krolth. In the midst of the chaos, a new transmission came through on the command center's main screen. It was an encrypted message, one Evan immediately recognized as coming from Earth's United Earth Command, UEC. "Put it through," he ordered, his voice tight. The message appeared on the YA screen, and General Lucia Harris's face appeared. "Commander Cross, this is General Harris. We're seeing massive unrest back home. Civilian populations are being evacuated, and Krolth ground troops are storming major cities. I need you to hold the line up there. Don't let them take Earth. We'll do what we can to stall them down here." Evan's gaze hardened as he stared at the general. "Understood, General. We won't let them take a single inch of this planet." The Krolth may have had their massive fleets and advanced technology, but the humans had something far more potent: resolve. The UEC had trained the next generation of soldiers for moments like these. Humanity had been forced into the position of underdog, and that had forged them into something far more dangerous than any alien conqueror could ever imagine. The Krolth had underestimated human spirit, and now they were paying the price. In the next few moments, Evan saw the first signs of Krolth desperation. The flagship's engines flared as it attempted a quick retreat, attempting to break free from the grasp of the humans' relentless assault. But it was too late. The flagship's once pristine hull was now nothing but twisted metal and scorched. "Plates. Ready the assault team," Evan said, turning to Lieutenant Patel. "We're boarding the flagship. We finished this fight on their turf." Zara nodded, already inputting the coordinates. "You're leading this, sir?" Evan gave a firm nod. "I am. We can't give them the chance to regroup. Let's show them that even in the face of annihilation, we fight." The boarding party, consisting of the best soldiers from Earth's finest military units, prepared to enter the Krolth flagship. They suited up, their armor gleaming under the artificial lights of the Ragnarok's docking bay. For these soldiers, this mission wasn't just about the survival of their species, it was about sending a message that Earth would not bend, that humanity would never back down, no matter the odds. The boarding shuttle detached from the Ragnarok, its thrusters firing as it rocketed toward the Krolth flagship. The soldiers inside were silent, their faces set in grim determination. The hum of the shuttle's engines was the only sound breaking the tension. As the shuttle neared the flagship, the Krolth were frantic. They launched countermeasures, deploying defensive drones and activating shields that flickered weakly under the onslaught. But it wasn't enough. Evan and his team stormed onto the flagship's bridge, weapons raised. The Krolth command crew, previously confident in their dominance, now seemed panicked and desperate. They tried to fight back, but they were no match for the trained humans who had learned to fight dirty, adapt quickly, and innovate relentlessly. In moments, the Krulth flagship fell silent. The battle outside was still raging, but for the first time since the war began, the humans had taken control of the enemy's ship. "We have the bridge, Commander." Zara's voice crackled over the comms. "We're sending out a signal. It's time to end this." Evan took a deep breath. "Let's finish this. No mercy." In that moment, as he looked out across the burning remnants of the Krulth fleet, Evan knew one thing. The galaxy would never forget the day humanity. The Krulth flagship, once a symbol of the invaders' overwhelming power, now lay under human control. The screams of battle outside the flagship's walls began to subside as the shock waves of humanity's unprecedented victory reverberated across the galaxy. On board the Krulth dreadnought, Commander Evan Cross stood at the heart of the bridge. The alien ship, once a terrifying testament to the Krulth's technological superiority, now felt oddly silent, almost lifeless. The once bustling control room, filled with Krulth officers barking orders and coordinating tactical maneuvers, was now eerily quiet. The human soldiers, battle-worn but unyielding, had done their job. The Krulth fleet was falling apart. One by one, their remaining ships were being dismantled by the relentless precision of humanity's forces. The Krulth had been forced to retreat, something no species had ever dared do before when facing the invincible might of the Krulth Empire. "We've got their flagship, sir." Zara Patel's voice broke through the silence. She was standing near the comms station, watching the Krulth warships disintegrate under the heavy assault. "It's over for them. The rest of their fleet is surrendering or fleeing. The Krulth have no choice now." Evan's expression was grim. He had always known humanity would fight back, but even he hadn't anticipated the swift and brutal nature of their response. The Krulth were powerful, yes, but they were not prepared for the raw, unrelenting force that humanity could bring when pushed to the brink. "We've won this battle, but the war isn't over," Evan said, his voice steady, betraying no hint of the exhaustion he felt. "We need to send a message, one they'll never forget." He turned toward Dr. Elena Voss, who had been overseeing the alien technology that allowed humanity to break through the Krulth shields. Her hands were still trembling slightly from the adrenaline, but her eyes were bright with a mixture of pride and determination. "Dr. Voss, can you broadcast a signal from their flagship?" he asked. Elena nodded. "I've already set it up. Commander, I'll make sure the message is loud and clear." Within moments, Elena interfaced with the flagship's systems. The Krulth had left their communication network intact, likely underestimating humanity's capability to seize control. As Elena activated the transmitter, the screen before them flickered to life, displaying the symbol of the United Earth Command. "This is Commander Evan Cross of the United Earth Forces." Evan's voice echoed through the vast expanse of space, reaching the remaining Krulth fleet, their allies, and anyone within range of the signal. "To the Krulth Empire and all who stand in their way. We have fought for our survival, and we have claimed victory. The days of your invasion are over. We do not yield. We do not bow. We fight for our future, for our families, and for our planet. We are human." The message broadcasted across the galaxy, shaking the foundations of every empire that had ever thought humanity weak. The words were more than a declaration. They were a warning. Evan paused, his eyes scanning the faces of the crew. "Let this be a new beginning for our species. We may be small in numbers, but we are mighty in spirit. The Krulth are only the first. We will not stand idly by as others threaten our existence." As the signal was broadcast, Evan's heart pounded in his chest. Humanity had taken the first step toward reclaiming their place in the stars, and with every Krulth ship that fell, that message became clearer. The response was immediate. The Krolth flagship, once a symbol of their arrogance, became a beacon of humanity's strength. Across the galaxy, every Krolth warship, every remaining vessel, received the transmission. It was the moment that turned the tide of the war. On Earth, across the battle-scarred cities, the people watched in awe as the news broke. The military command center, where General Lucia Harris had worked tirelessly to defend Earth's remaining strongholds, received the transmission. The Krolth had been driven back from the gates of the planet, their fleet shattered. The fear that had gripped Earth for months began to melt away. "They've done it. We've done it," General Harris muttered, staring at the broadcast. "The tide has turned." Meanwhile, Evan felt a weight lift from his chest. They weren't just defending their home anymore, they were carving out their future among the stars. Humanity had proven that it could stand toe-to-toe with the most powerful species in the galaxy and win. As the Krolth began to retreat, Evan looked out at the view of the dying battle, the massive ships burning in the distance. But this was just the beginning. The Krolth were no longer an unstoppable force. They were wounded, retreating into the deep corners of space. But other threats lurked beyond the stars, and humanity was now ready for them. The war had taught humanity something crucial. They were not invincible, but they were resilient. Their true strength wasn't in their technology or the size of their armies. It was in their refusal to accept defeat, no matter how overwhelming the odds. "Commander, the remaining Krolth forces are fleeing," Zara said, looking up from her station. "It's over for them, but there's still a lot of work ahead," Evan nodded. "This isn't the end. It's the beginning. We've sent a message to the galaxy, but it's time we start building our future among the stars." Humanity had survived the Krolth invasion, but the galaxy had now seen what they were truly capable of. As Evan stared into the void of space, the stars no longer felt so distant. They no longer felt so dangerous. The galaxy would never forget the day humanity rose from the ashes, showing that when humans strike, the void of space was eerily silent after the Krolth had retreated, their once mighty fleet scattering in all directions. But the battle was far from over. With Earth's defenses solidified, Commander Evan Cross and his crew aboard the Ragnarok knew that the Krolth were not the only threat out there. Their victory, while monumental, was only the beginning, and they were not about to let complacency set in. Evan paced the bridge of the Ragnarok, his thoughts racing. The Krolth Empire had underestimated humanity, and the result was evident. But now that the invaders had been driven off Earth, their imperial ambitions had turned toward regrouping. Evan knew that as much as Earth had won, the fight for the galaxy was still just beginning. The Krolth would not go quietly into the night. "Sir, we've received a new set of coordinates from the UEC," Lieutenant Zara Patel's voice broke Evan's thoughts. She was standing beside the communications station, her brow furrowed as she reviewed the incoming data. "It's from the Galactic Council. They want us to meet with the Sivori at the edge of the Terran Nebula." Evan raised an eyebrow. The Sivori were a mysterious species, an ancient race of galactic diplomats with vast influence across star systems. Known for their neutral stance in galactic matters, they were highly intelligent and powerful in their own right, although they never directly involved themselves in conflict. A meeting with them could have serious implications for humanity's future. "I thought the Sivori didn't get involved in wars," Evan said, crossing his arms. "They usually don't," Zara responded, tapping a few commands into her console. "But the Krolth's retreat has caused ripples across the galaxy. Some species are questioning whether Earth should be seen as a new power. The Sivori want to ensure that the balance of power isn't disrupted." Evan sighed. He knew the Sivori's reputation for cautious diplomacy, but the idea of being lectured about power dynamics was infuriating. Humanity had proven their strength, and now they needed to chart their own path. "Prepare the ship for departure. Let's find out what they want." The Ragnarok began its journey to the Terran Nebula, its sleek form cutting through space as It hurtled toward the coordinates provided by the Galactic Council. As they neared the nebula, the crew could see the Sivori delegation ship on their scanners. It was a vast, elegant vessel, its shape unlike any other, floating like a ghost in the swirling cloud of gas and dust. The bridge crew was tense as the ship docked alongside the Sivori craft. They didn't know what to expect. But Evan knew one thing. Humanity was no longer a backwater species. They were a force to be reckoned with. Inside the Sivori ship, the air was thick with anticipation. The Sivori ambassador, a tall, slender figure with iridescent skin, greeted Evan and his crew in a neutral tone. Despite the ambassador's calm demeanor, Evan could sense an underlying tension in the room. "We have been observing your species, Commander Cross," the ambassador said, its voice echoing in the vast, cold chamber. "Your victory over the Krolth has sent ripples through the galactic order. The balance of power has shifted." Evan stood tall, his posture confident. "We didn't ask for this fight, Ambassador, but now that we're here, we intend to carve our own path. The galaxy needs to understand that humanity is not to be underestimated. The Krolth learned that the hard way." The Sivori ambassador tilted its head, assessing Evan with unblinking eyes. "And you believe the galaxy is ready for a new power? The Krolth were a formidable force. Even now, their remnants are regrouping, plotting their next moves." "I am not worried about the Krolth anymore," Evan replied, his voice firm. "We've sent a message. Humanity fights to survive, and when we do, we fight to win. No empire can threaten our home and get away with it. And the rest of the galaxy better take note." The ambassador seemed to ponder Evan's words. The tension in the room thickened as the weight of their conversation settled over the chamber. Finally, the Sivori ambassador spoke again, its voice, even but with a hint of something darker. "Your species is dangerous, Commander, not in strength, but in resolve. You push forward, unwilling to stop, even when faced with extinction, and that makes you unpredictable. You may have the strength to challenge the Krolth, but do you have the wisdom to know when to stop?" Evan didn't flinch. "We'll stop when humanity no longer has to fight. We'll stop when the galaxy recognizes that we can defend ourselves and our people. And if anyone dares to threaten us again, we'll remind them of why we don't back. Down!" The Sivori ambassador paused, as if weighing Evan's words carefully. Finally, it nodded. "The Sivori are watching, Commander. The galaxy is watching. You are no longer invisible. Whether you realize it or not, you have already set something into motion. The question is, what will you do with that power?" Evan's gaze hardened. "We'll build our future, Ambassador, and we'll make sure humanity's place in this galaxy is secure. Starting now." The ambassador regarded him with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "Perhaps, Commander Cross, perhaps. But remember, every action creates consequences. The Krolth are not the only challenge you will face." With that, the meeting ended. As Evan and his crew left the Sivori ship, a quiet realization settled over them. The galaxy was no longer a place of silent observers. It was a place of choices, and humanity had made theirs. Back aboard the Ragnarok, Zara Patel leaned over to Evan. "Do you think they'll try to stop us?" Evan stared out into the vast expanse of stars, his eyes burning with determination. "They can try, but they'll soon realize that when humans strike, even..." The Ragnarok drifted through the black emptiness of space, its sleek, battle-scarred form cutting through the void with a sense of purpose. The meeting with the Sivori had been a cold reminder of the complex web of power that humanity now found itself tangled in. The galaxy was not a place for the faint-hearted, and now that humanity had revealed its strength, there were many who would try to undermine it. Commander Evan Cross stood at the helm of the bridge, watching the stars stretch out before him. The Krolth were defeated, their fleets shattered, but their remnants were still out there somewhere, and the Savori, despite their neutrality, were not the only species that would take notice of humanity's sudden rise. "We've received a transmission from the Draxian Union, sir." Lieutenant Zara Patel's voice snapped Evan from his thoughts. Her eyes were glued to her console, her fingers flying over the controls. "They want to discuss terms. They've heard about the Krolth retreat, and they want to—" "I know what they want," Evan interrupted, his voice low but filled with a quiet edge of warning. The Draxian Union was one of the largest coalitions in the galaxy, a powerful empire known for its aggressive expansionist policies and fearsome military. After the fall of the Krolth, they had likely seen the shifting tides and wanted to seize control of the power vacuum. "Put them through, Lieutenant. Let's hear their offer." The main screen flickered, and a tall reptilian figure appeared in front of them. The Draxian leader, Lord Spheric, his jagged scales shimmering in the dim light of his ship's bridge, exuded an aura of quiet authority. His eyes, cold and calculating, locked onto Evan. "Commander Cross." Lord Spheric's voice was thick with the low hum of his native tongue, though the translator made his words clear. "The fall of the Krolth Empire has created a vacuum, and the galaxy is in flux. You, humans, have proven your strength. We have seen the evidence. But there is more at play here than just military power. The Draxian Union has come to offer you a proposition." Evan stood taller, his mind racing. The Draxians had never been friends of humanity, their motives always veiled in secrecy. The last thing Earth needed was to be manipulated into becoming another puppet state. "We're listening, Lord Spheric," Evan replied, his voice steady but laced with suspicion. "The Draxian Union recognizes the human spirit," Spheric continued, his cold eyes narrowing. "Your tenacity, your resolve in the face of overwhelming odds. We admire that. But we also know that power is not just about victory, it is about control. The Savori have already indicated they will not allow chaos to reign. So we propose an alliance, an opportunity for your species to join the Draxian Union." The proposal hung in the air, its implications far-reaching. An alliance with the Draxians could give humanity unprecedented access to technology, resources, and military strength. But it would come at a cost. The loss of autonomy, a surrender of humanity's newfound independence. Evan's mind raced as he considered the options. The Draxian Union was powerful, but their history was filled with conquest and subjugation. To ally with them would mean subjugation in some form, and humanity had just proven it was not a species willing to be ruled. "We don't need alliances with empires that only see us as pawns on a galactic chessboard," Evan said, his voice firm. "Humanity stands on its own. We have earned our place among the stars, and we won't sell it for your favor." The cold silence of space seemed to stretch between them. Lord Spheric's lips twitched in something close to a smile. "You speak of pride, Commander Cross, but pride has a price. Remember this moment. When the galaxy turns against you, as it surely will, you will find that isolation comes with consequences." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the crew of the Ragnarok in silence. Evan stood still for a moment, the weight of the decision settling heavily on his shoulders. "Sir," Zara said after a moment, "we may have just made a powerful enemy. The Draxians don't take rejection well." Evan turned to face her, his expression set in stone. "Let them come. Humanity will face whatever comes with the same resolve we've shown before. We don't bow to threats. We rise." The crew nodded, the quiet intensity in the room palpable. Humanity had come a long way from the backwaters of the galaxy, and now, as their power grew, so did the threats against them. The galaxy had taken notice, but the question was, would humanity continue to rise, or would the weight of their newfound status bring them to their knees? As the Ragnarok began to move out of the Draxian territory, Evan watched the stars once again. The galaxy was changing. No longer were humans viewed as insignificant. They were a force, a power capable of reshaping the universe. But with that power came responsibility and an unrelenting target on their backs. "Next stop," Evan said, turning toward his crew. "We find the Krulth. It's time." The Ragnarok drifted through space, the stars outside its hull twinkling like distant memories of a universe that had not yet understood the consequences of crossing humanity. Commander Evan Cross stood at the helm, his gaze fixed on the endless void. The last few days had been a whirlwind of politics and threats. The Draxian Union had made their move, and the Sivori's warning still echoed in Evan's mind. The Krulth, however, remained the most pressing matter. They had retreated, but that did not mean they had been defeated. Evan knew they were out there, regrouping and plotting, and humanity had no intention of letting them recover. "We've got a signal, sir." Lieutenant Zara Patel's voice broke through the stillness of the command deck. "It's from an old Krulth warship, still transmitting, but the signature is weak." Evan's pulse quickened. The Krulth had been wounded, but not destroyed. This could be their chance to end the war for good. "Patch it through." The main screen flickered and a static-filled image of a battered Krulth ship appeared. The transmission was breaking up, but the message was clear. A Krulth general, bloodied and bruised, stood in front of the camera. His eyes were wide, filled with desperation. "Humans," the general's voice crackled. You think you've won. You think you've driven us off. But you've only made things worse. The Krulth Empire is vast. We will return. And when we do, there will be no one left to stop us." Evan's jaw clenched. The Krulth had underestimated humanity once. They would not make that mistake again. "I think you've said enough," Evan replied, his voice cold. "We know who you are and what you've done. And we know you're not going to stop unless we make you. Prepare to face the consequences." Before the Krulth general could respond, Evan ordered the transmission cut. He looked to his crew, his resolve hardening. "We go after them now. No more waiting. The Krulth will fall, and humanity will finish what we started." The ship's engines hummed with power as the Ragnarok surged forward, pushing through the stars. The crew was tense, aware that this mission would be the one that defined humanity's place in the galaxy. They had faced the Sivori, the Draxian Union, and the Krulth's fury, and now the galaxy would learn that humans were not to be trifled with. Hours passed in silence as they tracked the faint signal of the Krulth ship, closing the gap. They were close now, so close that the tension in the air was palpable. Evan could feel the weight of the decision pressing on him. This wasn't just a mission to destroy an enemy. This was the final step in proving that humanity would not be conquered, not by the Krulth, and certainly not by anyone else. "We've got a visual, sir." Zara's voice cut through the silence again. "The Krulth ship is just ahead, drifting in the outskirts of the Cerberus Nebula." Evan nodded. "Lock weapons. Get ready for the fight of our lives." The Ragnarok approached the crippled Krulth vessel, its weapons primed and ready. The moment they were within range, the Ragnarok fired. Plasma bolts tore into the Krulth ship's hull, but the enemy ship wasn't going down quietly. They returned. Fire with a vengeance. The Krulth, desperate to keep their hold on what was left of their pride. But Evan wasn't about to let them win. As the battle raged on, the Ragnarok's advanced AI and human ingenuity took the lead. The Krulth ships might have been massive and technologically advanced, but humanity's resilience was a force of its own. Every strike, every counter was driven by one simple truth. Humanity would never give in. "Releasing EMP burst," Zara called out. "They're temporarily disabled." Evan seized the opportunity. "Now! Full power to forward shields and break through their flank!" The Ragnarok surged forward, its engines roaring to life as it broke through the Krulth's defenses. The massive vessel's shields cracked under the strain of human precision, and within moments, the Ragnarok tore through the heart of the Krulth ship. The enemy's system shut down, their once imposing war machine reduced to a floating wreck. But Evan wasn't finished yet. He knew the Krolth had more ships waiting in the wings, more remnants of their empire ready to strike back. Humanity had not just won this battle, they had sent a message. One that would echo across the galaxy. A message that would make every empire, every species, think twice before ever daring to challenge humanity again. Evan stood tall on the bridge, his crew watching in silence as the Krolth ship disintegrated in front of them, the wreckage scattering like debris in a cosmic storm. The battle was over, but the war had only just begun. "We've won this round," Evan said quietly, his gaze never leaving the shattered remains of the Krolth vessel. "But this is just the beginning. Humanity will never bow. We fight to survive, and we fight to win." The galaxy had taken notice. And now, the universe knew that when humans struck,